We have multiple Jays updates to go over today as it is finally happening. The long-awaited debut of a couple of key Blue Jays is on the horizon. We're going to break down these new reports and discuss what they mean going forward, as well as some other updates as spring training continues to get underway, as well as a couple of interesting tidbits surrounding some stats of players so far in spring training that has Jays fans very intrigued. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, folks, if you're a part of the 71% who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. Your guys' support has been absolutely unbelievable. Thank you, guys. We're on the road now to 17,000 subscribers. If you want to help us towards that goal of 17K and you're part of that 71%, make sure to hit the subscribe button. But ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, we know the Jays play this afternoon at around 1 Eastern, and we're going to be covering that game. We should have a video following it. But we have some major updates. Now, we've seen most players. We saw George Springer in yesterday's game. I covered some things about his swing, and seeing all these different players, seeing how they're looking, the adjustments they've made are all interesting. However, we have yet to see two key players in this team, Daulton Varsho, and most importantly, Anthony Santander. And we finally have some info surrounding that. Let's dive right into it. And also some injury updates, of course, surrounding Joey Lapafito as well, and a couple other guys, which we'll dive into later in the video. But I want to start with this right here. So, Daulton Varsho, we have an update surrounding him from Hazel May. Daulton Varsho's shoulder told me he expects to make his spring debut Friday at TD Ballpark. John Schneider confirms that he plans on DHing him. Varsho is now throwing from 120 feet, and Schneider wants to err on the side of caution with his throwing. So this is actually pretty big news. Now, big news for a ton of different reasons. One, he's going to be making his debut tomorrow, and stay tuned because later in this video, we're going to have another update and someone else who's making their debut on Friday, which is huge news. But ultimately, Daulton Varsho is going to be one of the most critical factors heading into this season. Now, we thought during the offseason that he was going to miss, weeks, maybe even not months, but a month or two of regular season play. And he is ahead of schedule. And I covered in a video last week. Keegan Matheson came out in a report and said that Daulton Varsho is ahead of schedule. He also hinted at that in the video we did with Keegan last week surrounding how Daulton Varsho is looking like he's going to be ahead of schedule. And there even is a chance that he starts opening night for the Jays. And now to see him DHing on Friday is huge news. Now, for Varsho, it's his right shoulder, so it is his throwing shoulder. Usually you see these injuries, pitchers, for example, obviously starting pitchers, relief pitchers, whatever it ends up being, that's where you usually see them. But now you're seeing an outfielder. That's going to be the biggest thing for Varsho. Is he going to be able to be a defensive, is he going to be a defensive liability when it comes to his arm if he's hurt? So they're going to make sure he's 100%. They're going to get his arm right. But in the meantime, you can still DH. He's comfortable swinging the bat. That's what Keegan Matheson said. That's what the reports are saying. And as it pertains to throwing, they don't want to re-aggravate the injury, so they're going to take it slow with him. But he's going to be crucial heading into 2025. Obviously, one of the best defenders in the game, the best defensive center fielder in the MLB. And again, we need him to be 100% healthy, and especially because of how good of an outfielder he is, they're going to need to make sure that his arm is okay and that he's not going to re-aggravate it. Because if you have an injured Daulton Varsho that's out long-term, your center field spot is a little bit murky now. You don't really want George Springer going there a ton. You have Joey Lapafito and unfortunately, Miles Straw as well as a guy who's competing for a spot. So let me know down below if you're excited to see Varsho play on Friday. But regardless, he is way ahead of schedule. We're still a month away from opening day, exactly a month away today. So hopefully he can continue, swing the bat well, get his offense going, and then continue to work on his shoulder behind the scenes there. So some very good news and some positive news on that front as it pertains to Daulton Varsho. And we finally, broke the silence surrounding him. But a couple other things here. We'll start with the Jays pitching plans before we dive into one of the very interesting points of, returns. Pitching plans. So starting in this afternoon, there's Easton Lucas Thursday at the Orioles. So they're not playing in Dunedin today, so we might not see a lot of the regulars in today's game. But that being said, we're seeing guys like Alan Roden, and hopefully we see Aurelvis Martinez today. Easton Lucas pitches today. Chris Bassett on Friday making his spring debut, which is going to be very interesting. Friday is the game to watch because you're going to see a bunch of regulars in there. Jake Bloss Friday evening because it is a split squad game, so you're seeing Chris Bassett in the afternoon, and then Jake Bloss, who touched 98 miles per hour in his last start there, in his last stretch of play. So some very interesting games as we start to look ahead now, and especially starting tomorrow, right? Tomorrow's going to be the big display of talent on both sides. A couple games coming out there, so it's going to be very interesting to see. We might have a little double video for you guys on Friday, depending on how those games go. But here is the big piece of news as well that dropped. Now, this dropped yesterday afternoon. Anthony Santander has been dealing with visa issues in the DR, but he's en route back to the Jays and slated to play again as soon as Friday. So not only are we getting Varsho playing Friday, we're going to see, in all likelihood, Anthony Santander make his spring debut on Friday. And some people were speculating and getting a little bit concerned, myself included, as it pertains to what the actual problem was, why he hasn't been getting into the lineup. I thought he was going to get into the lineup in yesterday's game, but he didn't. Santander is going to be back and ready to go for Friday. He was dealing with a visa issue, which, all things considered, is, best case scenario as it pertains to the baseball side, because he's not injured. He's not behind schedule. We get to go out. We've been seeing him, hitting batting practice, hitting bombs. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we finally get to see Anthony Santander. And again, it is just spring training, but at this point, like, seeing Daulton Varsho, who we thought was going to be out for a while, making progress and hopefully going to be able to get in a game Friday and have a decent performance is very encouraging, especially because that directly impacts how they're going to play out their lineup once opening day comes in. We're seeing George Springer with the new batting stats I covered yesterday, and now we get to see Anthony Santander play some baseball, which I'm super excited about. Their brand new addition. Of course, hopefully we'll get to see maybe a little bit of Jeff Hoffman, some of their other new additions. We've been seeing Andres Jimenez, a ton of different things there. As it pertains to La Perfito, when he ran into the wall, he is slated for a full day of work tomorrow, which is today, because the tweet was yesterday night, and return to game action as soon as Friday. So just a bunch of updates here. And again, these are all positives because Joey La Perfito is returning to action. He's going to be fine. His injury, he smacked his head very, very hard on the fence, and he's returning to work today, which is fantastic. And overall, ladies and gentlemen, things are looking very good. You have a Varsho returning, Santander, the mystery there. It's finally happening on that front. We have José Berríos as well, like I mentioned yesterday. He told Buck Martinez and Den Shulman the plan this spring is to make 5 Grapefruit League starts. So we're going to see 4 more, and he looked very solid as well. But a couple other things I want to cover before we wrap up here. And again, here's the pitching plans. Feel free to pause and look at those. Is Jimmy Garcia. He made his spring debut a couple days ago, and there was a very interesting tweet I wanted to highlight here. He says here, Jimmy Garcia made his return to the Jays today, and the stuff was marvelous. Garcia will be used in a high-leverage bullpen role this summer, a role he flourished before in Toronto. And obviously, this was, he pitched a couple days ago in the bullpen. Jimmy Garcia, the fact that the Jays were able to change their bullpen, manipulate it around to be as good as it is now compared to being the worst in baseball last season, is a miracle by Ross Atkins. Now, I'm not saying that Ross Atkins had a good offseason. I think it was like a B, whatever you end up, want to say. They don't have Vlad Ace in it. That's the biggest problem. The bullpen, though, you have Jeff Hoffman, Nick Sandlin, all these different guys, Chad Green, even Brennan Little looks really good. A lot of internal competition. The fact that you have Jimmy Garcia now as well, it's one of the signings that kind of went under the radar simply because it was the first signing of spring. I was actually live when the signing broke down. He is going to be, the advanced metrics look great. He looked great in his debut. He is going to be one of the most crucial factors to this. And I think there's something to be said about this team's pitching. The bullpen's great. You have Max Scherzer. You have Lars Nootbaar coming out after Max Scherzer and saying that he's still extremely difficult to hit. And it's going to be very interesting. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. One final thing. Looking at the schedule, and we'll continue to look at this as we inch closer and closer to the regular season. But man, oh man, is it a gauntlet first month of baseball. You're playing the Orioles, Red Sox, and the Mets and the Orioles. They have one easy series in theory, and it's the Nationals, and they aren't even super easy anymore. They're an up-and-coming young team, so CJ Abrams and players like that. It's going to be wild. But ladies and gentlemen, tons of new updates for you all. I'm going to keep you updated with all the latest news. They played today. Should have a video following that game, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Cheers.